The Sleepy Peach Covenant. In October 1890, the Sleepy Peaches forest loomed over the small German village like a dark, brooding giant. The villagers whispered of ancient curses and unseen terrors lurking within the dense, shadowy woods. Melissa Fisher, a determined and brave 22-year-old, lived with her younger brother, Hans, whom she adored. One chilly evening, Hans went missing. Melissa's heart pounded with dread as she scoured the village and surrounding forest. Rumors began to swirl about strange rituals in the heart of Sleepy Peaches, and suspicions fell on Greta Weiss, the enigmatic village healer known for her dark arts. Ignoring the villagers' warnings, Melissa's love for Hans fueled her courage. She resolved to follow Greta into the forest, determined to uncover the truth and save her brother from whatever sinister fate awaited him in the depths of Sleepy Peaches. Melissa trailed Greta into the depths of Sleepy Peaches forest, her steps careful and silent. As she ventured deeper, the trees grew gnarled and twisted, their branches forming sinister shapes against the moonlit sky. Strange symbols, carved into tree trunks and glowing faintly, sent chills down her spine. The air grew thick with an otherworldly energy, making it difficult to breathe. After what felt like hours, Melissa stumbled upon an ancient clearing. At its center stood a crumbling stone altar, surrounded by hooded figures chanting in a guttural, unfamiliar language. Her eyes widened as she took in the scene. The eerie symbols etched into the stones, the flickering candlelight casting grotesque shadows, and the palpable sense of dread that hung in the air. At the head of the assembly stood Brunhild, an ancient and formidable witch. Her presence commanded the attention of the coven, her eyes glowing with a malevolent power as she directed the dark ritual. Melissa's heart pounded as she realized the full extent of the horror before her. Her breath caught in her throat when she saw Hans, bound and unconscious on the altar. The witches were preparing for a sacrifice, and her beloved brother was their next victim. Desperation and fear surged through her as she watched, helpless, the dark ceremony unfolding before her eyes. With a surge of courage, Melissa sprang from her hiding place and rushed towards the altar, determined to rescue Hans. Her heart pounded as she dodged the witches, but their dark powers thwarted her every move. The trees seemed to come alive, their branches reaching out to hinder her progress, roots tripping her feet. The forest itself was against her. As she neared the altar, Greta suddenly appeared, her grip iron-strong. Melissa struggled, but Greta's strength was overwhelming. With a cruel smile, Greta dragged Melissa to the center of the ritual, forcing her to her knees. The hooded figures closed in, chanting louder, their voices blending into a terrifying symphony. Brunhild raised her arms, her voice rising above the others. Dark energy crackled in the air, and the ground beneath the altar seemed to pulse with malevolent power. Melissa's desperation grew as she fought against her restraints, tears streaming down her face. "No, Hans!" she screamed, her voice hoarse with anguish. Brunhild, with a final triumphant chant, plunged a ceremonial dagger into Hans's chest. His blood flowed over the altar, absorbed by the ancient stone. The witches' chanting reached a fever pitch as dark energy surged into them, their power sealed by the horrific sacrifice. Melissa's cries echoed through the forest, her heart shattered as she watched the life drain from her brother's eyes. The witch's malevolent victory was complete, leaving her in a nightmare from which there was no escape. Melissa's anguished screams pierced the night as the dark ritual concluded. The malevolent forces of the witches seemed to grow stronger, the very air around her vibrating with sinister energy. The forest, once a familiar refuge, now felt like a living entity, its darkness seeping into her soul. The witches released Melissa, their expressions twisted with cruel satisfaction. They knew she was cursed. Whenever she tried to speak of the horrors she had witnessed, shadowy arms would materialize from her back, forcefully silencing her. No one but Melissa could see or feel these spectral limbs, leaving her isolated in her terror. Melissa stumbled back to the village, her heart heavy with grief and despair. She tried to warn others, to tell them of the witches and the sacrifice, but each time, the shadowy arms would emerge, choking her words into silence. The villagers began to fear her, seeing her as a harbinger of doom rather than a victim. Isolated and tormented, Melissa was forever haunted by the loss of her brother and the witch's malevolent presence in the forest. Her once vibrant spirit was now a hollow shell, consumed by the darkness that lurked in the depths of Sleepy Peaches. She wandered the village in silence, a mute witness to the evil that continued to fester, powerless to stop it, eternally cursed by the malevolent covenant. The Hidden Coven. The abandoned warehouse loomed on the outskirts of New York City, a decaying relic of a bygone era. Its rusted metal doors hung ajar, and shattered windows whispered tales of neglect. The surrounding area, overgrown with weeds and littered with debris, added to its eerie and desolate atmosphere. This forgotten structure had long been a subject of local legends, whispered among those who dared to speak of it. Zach Davis, a 35-year-old urban explorer with an insatiable curiosity, thrived on uncovering the secrets of abandoned places. His partner in this venture, Susan Collins, a 32-year-old librarian, shared his fascination, though her interest lay more in the historical and supernatural lore tied to such locations. Together, they formed a duo driven by the thrill of discovery and the pursuit of forgotten stories. One evening, while poring over old maps and documents in the dim light of Susan's study, they stumbled upon a series of accounts detailing strange occurrences at the warehouse. Whispers of ghostly apparitions and inexplicable phenomena piqued their interest. Ignoring the ominous warnings of those who had dared to explore before them, Zach and Susan made the fateful decision to investigate, eager to unravel the mysteries that lay within the warehouse's crumbling walls. Their initial exploration of the warehouse was filled with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Zach and Susan moved cautiously through the dark, dusty corridors, their flashlights casting long shadows on the crumbling walls. Strange symbols, unfamiliar and ominous, were etched into the concrete, and scattered about were ancient books filled with cryptic texts on witchcraft. The air was thick with the scent of mildew and an unsettling sense of something unseen watching them. As they ventured deeper, a young woman appeared seemingly out of nowhere. Her name was Raven. She had an ethereal presence, her dark eyes reflecting an unsettling depth of knowledge. Raven approached them with an enigmatic smile, expressing an uncanny familiarity with their mission. She spoke softly, her words laced with subtle hints about the power and allure of the covenant hidden within the warehouse. Zach, captivated by the mystery and Raven's insinuations, began to delve deeper into the books and symbols, his curiosity transforming into an obsession. He was eager to uncover every secret the warehouse held. Susan, however, felt a growing unease. The strange symbols and Raven's cryptic comments seemed to weave a web of dread around her. The more Zach became engrossed, the more Susan's apprehension grew, sensing that their discoveries were leading them towards something dark and dangerous. Zach's obsession drove them deeper into the bowels of the warehouse. He pored over every symbol, deciphered every book, piecing together the dark history of the Hidden Covenant. The more he uncovered, the more the warehouse seemed to pulse with an ancient, malevolent energy. Susan, increasingly anxious, tried to convince Zach to leave, but he was too engrossed in the mystery to heed her warnings. In the heart of the warehouse, they stumbled upon a concealed chamber. The air inside was heavy with the scent of decay and burnt offerings. There, among the remnants of old rituals, stood Lilith, the ancient witch and leader of the Covenant. Her presence was overwhelming, her eyes burning with an unnatural light. Lilith spoke with a voice that seemed to echo from the depths of time, revealing that Zack and Susan's arrival was no accident. They had been drawn here by the Covenant's will. As Lilith spoke, Zack discovered a chilling revelation in one of the ancient texts. The Covenant intended to use him and Susan as sacrifices to summon an ancient demon, a ritual that would grant the witches immense power. The gravity of their situation hit Zack like a cold wave. Panic set in as he realized the true horror of their predicament. Susan's unease turned to terror as they both understood they were trapped, their fates sealed by the dark forces they had unwittingly sought. Realizing the dire situation, Zack and Susan frantically searched for a way out of the warehouse. Their breaths came in ragged gasps as they sprinted through the maze-like corridors, the walls seeming to close in on them. The dim light of their flashlights flickered, casting sinister shadows that danced menacingly. Raven emerged from the darkness, her demeanor transformed from the mysterious guide to a malevolent enforcer of the Covenant's will. With a chilling smile, she blocked their path, her eyes gleaming with a twisted delight. "You can't leave now," she whispered, her voice dripping with malice. She moved with an unnatural swiftness, effortlessly thwarting their desperate attempts to escape. Dragged back to the hidden chamber, Zack and Susan were forced into the center of a ritual circle, the symbols on the floor glowing with an eerie light. Lilith stood over them, chanting in an ancient tongue. Zack struggled, but the power binding him was too strong. The ritual began, and the air grew thick with a palpable evil. Dark tendrils of energy snaked around Zack, lifting him off the ground. His screams echoed through the warehouse as the demon's essence invaded his body, consuming his soul and leaving only darkness behind. Susan, paralyzed with horror, watched as Zack's eyes turned black, his face contorted in agony before settling into an expression of unholy calm. The ritual was complete, and the demon had found its vessel. Lilith and the witches celebrated their dark victory, but Susan's ordeal was far from over. In the chaos, Susan managed to break free, stumbling blindly through the corridors. She burst out into the night, her heart pounding with a fleeting sense of relief. She was free, she had escaped the nightmare. But her relief was short-lived. As she paused to catch her breath, a cold blade pressed against her back. Raven's voice was a soft, deadly whisper. "You didn't think it would be that easy, did you?" Before Susan could react, Raven drove the black, rusty blade into her back. The pain was searing, and Susan's scream was cut short as Raven twisted the knife, savoring every moment of her victim's agony. Over and over, the blade plunged into Susan's body, even after life had left her eyes. Raven's face was a mask of twisted satisfaction, the lifeless body at her feet a testament to the Covenant's unrelenting cruelty. As the night deepened, the warehouse stood silent once again and foreboding, a monument to the dark forces within. The echoes of Susan's final screams lingered in the air, a chilling reminder of the horrors that lay hidden in the shadows, waiting for their next victims. The Witches' Library. In the heart of Salem, Massachusetts, a quaint town steeped in history and folklore, stood Maggie Stevens' old bookstore. The cozy shop, with its creaky wooden floors and shelves packed with dusty volumes, was a beloved local treasure. Laura Jenkins, a 28-year-old schoolteacher, had recently moved to Salem and was eager to reconnect with her best friend Maggie, the bookstore's owner. One rainy afternoon, while exploring the shop, Laura and Maggie stumbled upon a hidden door behind a stack of old books. Excitement bubbled up as they pried it open, revealing a secret staircase descending into darkness. With flashlights in hand, They ventured down into a hidden library filled with ancient tomes and magical artifacts. The air was thick with the scent of aged parchment and the whispers of long-forgotten secrets. Fascinated by their find, Laura and Maggie began to study the mysterious books and artifacts. As they delved deeper, they uncovered hints of powerful magic and tales of an ancient covenant of witches. Their curiosity grew, intertwining their fates with the dark history lurking beneath the bookstore. As Laura and Maggie delved deeper into the hidden library's secrets, they came across an ancient grimoire that seemed to pulse with a strange energy. The book contained detailed accounts of a covenant of witches led by the powerful Morgana. One evening, as they pored over the text, the room grew cold, and a soft whisper echoed around them. Morgana herself appeared as a spectral figure, her eyes gleaming with otherworldly light. "Welcome, seekers of knowledge," Morgana intoned. "I see great potential in you both. Join our covenant, and I shall grant you power, knowledge, and immortality." Maggie's eyes widened with excitement at the prospect, while Laura felt a mixture of awe and apprehension. The promise of magical abilities and eternal life was tempting, and they both agreed to attend a few meetings to learn more. The meetings were held in the hidden depths of the library, where Laura and Maggie witnessed the witches' formidable powers firsthand. They saw spells cast that could heal wounds, summon fire, and manipulate the very fabric of reality. Initially, the allure of such power captivated them both, and they eagerly participated in the rituals. However, as time passed, Laura began to notice unsettling details. The cold, calculating looks exchanged between the witches, the strange symbols that seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, and the eerie chanting that filled the air. Her enthusiasm waned as a sense of dread grew within her. She started to suspect that the Covenant's true intentions were far darker than they appeared, and that the power they offered came at a terrible price. As the days turned into weeks, Maggie became increasingly seduced by the dark magic and the witches' promises. The allure of power and immortality was irresistible, and she immersed herself in the Covenant's rituals, her eyes shining with a newfound zeal. She learned to cast spells, control elements, and even glimpse into the future. The transformation was stark. Maggie was no longer the curious bookstore owner, but a burgeoning witch, intoxicated by the magic flowing through her. In contrast, Laura's initial curiosity turned to horror. She witnessed rituals involving blood sacrifices, where innocent lives were offered to feed the Covenant's dark powers. The grotesque ceremonies left her sickened and terrified. The true cost of the magic became painfully clear to her, and she could no longer ignore the malevolent undercurrent that ran through every spell and incantation. Realizing she couldn't be part of such evil, Laura decided to leave the Covenant. She pleaded with Maggie, hoping to take her friend away from the dark path she was on. "Maggie, we need to get out of here. This isn't right. We can't be a part of this." But Maggie, now fully committed to the witches, viewed Laura's reluctance as a threat to her new power. Her eyes, once filled with friendship, now glinted with a cold resolve. "You don't understand, Laura. This power, it's everything. I won't give it up." Laura's heart sank as she realized the depth of Maggie's transformation. Her friend was lost to the darkness, and any hope of rescuing her seemed to slip away. The betrayal cut deep, and Laura knew she had to escape alone, leaving Maggie behind to the Covenant she had chosen over their friendship. Laura, desperate to save her friend, confronted Maggie one last time. "Maggie, please, this isn't you. Abandon the Covenant before it's too late." Maggie's eyes flickered with a brief hint of conflict, but it quickly vanished, replaced by a cold, unwavering resolve. Under Morgana's influence, Maggie led Laura to the center of a dark ritual. The air was thick with the scent of incense and the murmur of ancient chants. As the witches circled them, Maggie seized Laura, binding her to the altar. "I'm sorry, Laura, but this is the only way," Maggie whispered, her voice void of the warmth it once held. Laura's final moments were filled with sheer terror and a profound sense of betrayal. Maggie, now fully ensnared by the Covenant's power, raised the ceremonial dagger and plunged it into Laura's heart. Her screams echoed through the hidden library, mingling with the witch's dark spells. As Laura's lifeblood seeped into the ancient stone, the ritual reached its climax. The Covenant's power surged, and Maggie's bond with the witches was sealed. The echoes of Laura's betrayal and agony solidified Maggie's place within the Covenant, forever marking the tragic end of their friendship. The Cursed Church. On the outskirts of Edinburgh, an eerie, abandoned church loomed in the mist, its decaying spires and shattered windows whispering tales of forgotten rituals. Local legends spoke of dark ceremonies and unexplained disappearances, making it a magnet for the curious and the brave. James Harris, a 25-year-old journalist, and Alice Walker, a 24-year-old photographer, arrived at the church, driven by their desire to uncover the truth behind its sinister reputation. As they stepped inside, the air grew cold and damp, the smell of mildew and decay filling their nostrils. Their flashlights revealed cryptic symbols etched into the stone walls and strange artifacts scattered across the dusty pews. The deeper they ventured, the stronger their suspicion grew that the church was more than just abandoned. It was actively used by a sinister group. Whispers of the past seemed to echo around them, and an unshakable feeling of being watched gnawed at their nerves, urging them to uncover the dark secrets lurking within the church's shadowy depths. James and Alice's exploration took a darker turn when they stumbled upon a concealed door behind the altar. Prying it open, they descended into a labyrinth of hidden passages and secret chambers beneath the church. The dim light of their flashlights revealed shelves lined with occult paraphernalia, dusty tomes, ritualistic tools, and jars filled with mysterious substances. In the deepest chamber, they found ancient texts and relics that chronicled the church's history as a front for a covenant of witches led by the formidable Hecate. The texts spoke of rituals and sacrifices performed to harness dark powers and achieve immortality. James and Alice were horrified to discover the extent of the Covenant's malevolent influence over the centuries. Their investigations were interrupted by ethereal figures emerging from the shadows, appearing as benevolent spirits. These apparitions, cloaked in an eerie glow, spoke softly, offering to answer the intruders' questions. Deceived by their calm demeanor, James and Alice allowed themselves to be guided deeper into the lair, seeking more information about the Covenant. As they delved further, they pieced together a chilling connection between the Covenant and numerous unexplained disappearances in the town. Victims were lured to the church, never to be seen again. Realization dawned on them. The benevolent spirits were the witches in disguise, and they had walked straight into a trap. The true danger of their situation became terrifyingly clear, as they understood they were now part of the Covenant's dark designs. James and Alice's journey led them to the heart of the underground labyrinth, where they encountered a grand, dimly lit chamber. At its center stood Hecate, the powerful and ancient leader of the Covenant. Draped in dark robes, her eyes glowed with an otherworldly light as she regarded them with a mixture of amusement and malice. "Welcome, intruders," Hecate intoned, her voice echoing ominously. "You've uncovered our secrets, but your curiosity will be your undoing." Realizing the peril they were in, James and Alice turned to flee. They raced through the twisting passages, but the church itself seemed to conspire against them. Doors slammed shut, walls shifted, and shadows stretched into terrifying forms, blocking their escape. The witches' dark powers thwarted their every move, trapping them within the cursed sanctuary. Angered by their intrusion and desperate to maintain the covenant's secrecy, Hecate unleashed a powerful curse upon them. With a wave of her hand, she bound them with dark magic, sealing their fates. James felt an agonizing transformation overtaking his body. His skin twisted and hardened, his bones elongated, and a monstrous form emerged from within him. "No, please stop," James cried out, but it was too late. He had become a grotesque guardian of the church, his humanity stripped away. His new, monstrous form was compelled to hunt new victims, ensuring the covenant's dark rituals would continue. Alice watched in horror as her friend transformed, realizing the extent of Hecate's cruelty. The chamber's oppressive darkness closed in around her, the witch's chants growing louder, sealing her own terrifying fate. Alice found herself trapped in a cold, damp room deep within the church's catacombs. The chamber was filled with instruments of torture, designed to extract pain and suffering to fuel the witch's dark magic. 3 other victims were bound in the room, their eyes vacant and unresponsive, their spirits broken by the relentless torment. Each torture session chipped away at Alice's sanity. The pain was unbearable, and the screams of the others echoed endlessly in the confined space. With each new wave of agony, her mind began to unravel, her will to resist fading. She stared into the hollow eyes of her fellow captives, feeling herself slip into the same lifeless state. Meanwhile, James, transformed into a monstrous guardian, was acutely aware of his horrifying new existence. Though his body was no longer his own, his mind remained intact. He battled constantly against the urge to hunt and capture new victims for the Covenant, but the dark magic that bound him was too powerful. His despair grew with each passing day, knowing he was a pawn in the witch's malevolent schemes. Both James and Alice were trapped in a cycle of unending horror. James, the unwilling hunter, and Alice, the eternally tortured prisoner, served as grim reminders of the church's dark power. They were unable to warn others or escape their cursed fate. The church, with its malevolent aura and hidden terrors, stood as a monument to their suffering, forever casting its shadow over anyone who dared to uncover its secrets. The coven beneath the city, the Parisian catacombs, with their labyrinthine tunnels and eerie atmosphere, whispered tales of the past. Shadows danced on the damp, ancient walls as the flickering torchlight revealed rows of stacked bones and skulls. Amidst this macabre setting, Isabelle Dupont, a passionate archaeologist, found solace in unraveling the mysteries of history. Her best friend, Claire Martin, accompanied her, a figure cloaked in an air of mystery. As they delved deeper into the catacombs, the air grew colder, and an unsettling silence fell. Isabelle's keen eyes caught sight of something unusual, a hidden entrance, partially obscured by centuries of dust and neglect. Excitement surged through her as she and Claire cleared the debris, revealing a concealed passage leading further underground. Heart pounding with anticipation, Isabelle ventured into the darkness, Claire close behind. The passage opened into a vast, ancient temple, its walls adorned with cryptic symbols and forgotten relics. The air was thick with the weight of untold secrets. Claire's voice broke the silence, her tone revealing a truth she had long hidden. "Isabelle, there's something you need to know. I'm part of a covenant of witches, led by the ancient and powerful Selene. This is our sanctuary." Isabelle's mind reeled as she processed Claire's revelation. Claire extended an invitation, her eyes gleaming with an otherworldly light. "Join us, Isabelle. Discover the power and immortality that our covenant offers." Isabelle stood at the threshold of a world she had never imagined, torn between the allure of ancient magic and the dark secrets that lay beneath the city. Intrigued and cautious, Isabel stepped into the underground temple, her senses overwhelmed by its ancient grandeur. The flickering torchlight revealed intricate carvings and arcane symbols etched into the stone walls. Claire led her through the dimly lit corridors to a vast chamber where the Covenant gathered. Hooded figures moved in a choreographed dance, their chants reverberating off the walls, filling the air with an eerie resonance. Isabel attended several rituals, each more mesmerizing and disturbing than the last. She witnessed the witch's power firsthand, healing wounds with a touch, summoning flames from thin air, and whispering to shadows that seemed to respond with a life of their own. The Covenant's claims of immortality echoed through the rituals, promising eternal life and boundless knowledge. Yet, as Isabel delved deeper into the Covenant's world, a sense of unease grew within her. She noticed unsettling details. The fleeting glances exchanged between witches, the cryptic conversations that ceased whenever she approached, and the faint smell of decay that lingered in the air. Her instincts screamed that something was amiss. Claire and Celine, sensing her hesitation, intensified their efforts to win her over. They painted vivid pictures of a life free from the constraints of mortality, filled with power and enlightenment. Celine's voice dripped with seductive promise as she spoke of ancient secrets and boundless possibilities. Claire's eyes shone with an almost feverish zeal, urging Isabel to embrace the Covenant's gifts. Caught in a whirlwind of temptation, Isabel found herself torn between her insatiable curiosity and the nagging sense of dread that gnawed at her soul. The allure of power and immortality was strong, but so was the shadow of the dark secrets that lay hidden beneath the surface. Driven by a growing sense of unease, Isabel began to explore the hidden corners of the temple. In a forgotten alcove, she discovered ancient texts and relics, covered in dust and cobwebs. As she painstakingly translated the cryptic writings, a chilling truth emerged. The Covenant's magic and immortality were not gifts freely given. They were bought with dark rituals and blood sacrifices. The relics depicted grotesque scenes of torment and death, their victims' faces etched in eternal agony. Isabel's heart pounded with horror. The cost of the Covenant's power was far too high. She felt a wave of nausea as she realized the extent of the malevolence that permeated the temple. The promise of eternal life now seemed a curse rather than a blessing. She faced a moral dilemma. Should she stay and confront the evil, or attempt to escape and expose the Covenant, knowing the dangers she would face either way? Determined to find answers, Isabel confronted Claire, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and anger. "Claire, how could you hide this from me? The sacrifices, the suffering, it's monstrous." Claire's eyes flickered with a mix of regret and resolve. "Isabel, you don't understand. This is the only way. The power, the knowledge, it requires sacrifice. But it's worth it." "No," Isabel retorted, her voice firm despite the tears in her eyes. "I can't be a part of this. I won't." Claire's demeanor shifted, her tone becoming manipulative. "Isabel, you're making a mistake. Think of what you could achieve, the lives you could save. Don't throw it all away." But Isabel's resolve hardened. Despite Claire's attempts to persuade her, she knew she couldn't stay. The darkness she had uncovered was too great to ignore. She planned her escape, her heart heavy with the knowledge that she would be leaving her friend behind and stepping into an uncertain and perilous future. Isabel's heart raced as she navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the underground temple, her footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. She had to escape and expose the Covenant's malevolence to the world. But as she approached the exit, her path was suddenly blocked by hooded figures. The witches had anticipated her move. Panicking, Isabel turned to find another way out, but the witches closed in, their eyes glowing with a sinister light. Claire stepped forward, her friendly demeanor now replaced by a cold, malevolent gaze. "You can't leave, Isabel," she said, her voice devoid of warmth. "The Covenant needs you." Isabel's heart sank. "Claire, please, let me go." Claire's expression hardened. "You made your choice, Isabel. Now you must face the consequences." The witches seized Isabel, their grips iron-strong. She struggled, but it was futile. They bound her with heavy chains and dragged her to the center of the ritual chamber. The air was thick with incense and the murmured chants of the Covenant. Celine stepped forward, her presence commanding and terrifying. "Isabel, you have a choice," she intoned, her voice echoing in the chamber. "Kill an innocent to gain our power, or become our sacrificial lamb." Isabel's blood ran cold. She looked around, seeing the eyes of the witches fixed upon her, awaiting her decision. The thought of taking an innocent life repulsed her, but the alternative was equally horrifying. "I won't kill," she whispered, her voice trembling but resolute. Celine's eyes gleamed with dark satisfaction. "Very well," she said. "You shall be our eternal sacrifice." The witches chanted louder, their voices rising in a terrifying crescendo. Isabel was bound to the altar, her fate sealed. She closed her eyes, bracing for the unimaginable torment that awaited her, knowing she had chosen to defy the darkness at the cost of her own soul. Isabel, her spirit unbroken, refused to commit murder, choosing to face the horrific consequences of defying the Covenant. The witches, their eyes gleaming with malevolent satisfaction, bound her to the ancient altar, chanting incantations that filled the chamber with dark energy. As the ritual reached its climax, Isabel felt a searing pain unlike anything she had ever experienced. The ritual granted her immortality, but with a monstrous twist. Isabel was condemned to serve as the Covenant's eternal sacrifice. Each time the witches needed to appease their dark gods or renew their power, Isabel was killed in excruciating ways. Her screams echoed through the temple as her body was subjected to unimaginable torment, only to resurrect and endure the agony anew. The cycle of death and resurrection became her endless nightmare, her soul trapped in perpetual suffering. Isabel's plight became a silent warning to anyone who might stumble upon the temple's dark secrets. Her ghostly form, a specter of eternal pain, roamed the underground halls. The chilling whispers of her torment echoed through the catacombs, a testament to the horrors hidden beneath the city of Paris. Though she was powerless to escape, Isabel's presence served as a grim guardian of the temple's truths. Her story, one of defiance and unyielding will, stood as a stark reminder of the price of dabbling in dark powers. Forever bound to the Covenant, Isabel's silent anguish warned all who dared to uncover the ancient evil lurking beneath the city's streets.